Late night, they ain't getting no rest. Work so hard, people think I'm obsessed. Cream at the crop, won't settle for no less. Headed to the top, I'm needing some focus. Yeah, gorilla of the jungle, I've been beating on my chest. I learned from the struggle, it was all just a test.
Hey guys, and welcome back. So today we're going to do a chart request video. So a lot of people in my Telegram group have specific requests for certain charts or assets they want me to look at. So today we're going to focus on crypto in specific. We're going to look at some altcoins. I'm also going to look at Bitcoin dominance and TOTAL3 to really see what the technical setup is looking like in terms of kind of the macro trends here. So first off, we're going to start here on the Bitcoin dominance chart. So weekly chart here, high time frame, looking at this, all of our indicators. We see RSI coming up to that more oversold territory traditionally seen back here. We also see the MACD quite oversold here. We're losing a little bit of momentum on that DMI here, so we can see the blue line breaking below that red ADX line. We really want it to be above to maintain that strong trend upwards. So the fact that we're breaking below this ADX line right now tells me the strong upwards trend is losing a little bit of momentum. That being said, we haven't seen the DMI minus line, this orange line, yet start to curl back up. So if we start to see that positive line and the negative line curl towards each other and start converging, that's going to be that signal that the trend is definitely slowing down to the upside. We also see here on our vortex indicator, that's kind of showing a similar pattern. So in these major uptrends, you see this red line here, the negative vortex indicator line, just stuck underneath the underneath kind of this blue line for the majority of this market run up for Bitcoin. That shows that Bitcoin dominance has been in a dominant uptrend based on the vortex indicator, as well as look at this DMI. So you can tell here this blue line broke above both the ADX and the negative line, held above it all through here, holding huge strength relative to the altcoins. So that's why Bitcoin dominance has kind of just been in this steady uptrend. But we saw here, negative momentum picks up. We break right through here. It was able to kind of break up, try to put in another high here, but that is a lower high than what we had back over there. So we do see that we're losing momentum on that DMI. We are starting to lose a little bit of momentum on the vortex indicator, and we're quite oversold when it comes to our RSI and our MACD on the weekly chart. So that's a bit of a warning sign to me. It tells me the trend is slowing down. We're getting to some pretty high historical support levels, which could be a potential top for Bitcoin dominance. We're going to flip to the daily chart, see how it looks there. Basically, what we can see, I've pointed this out before, we have a bearish divergence, so we've got higher highs on the price action and we've got lower highs on the RSI right here. So the fact that we have bearish divergence on the daily, we're looking a little bit overheated on the weekly, like the trend is slowing down, but we can see here the vortex indicator is still curled up a little bit on the blue line, but the orange line or the red line also curled up. So what we want to see is we want to see Bitcoin dominance breaking down if we want our altcoins to go on and outperform. We see MACD here kind of coming red, curling back over, so we could get another little push up on the low time frame. Also, if we flip to our 4-hour, just getting a gauge kind of everything. So same thing here, the bullish momentum is favored on the low time frame. So the vortex indicator is in a bullish setup. We've got the DMI, with that ADX, it is below 20, so it's not a really strong trend on the low time frame. If this ADX starts climbing up, gets above 25 and is angled up with the blue above it, that's a signal of a strong trend on the 4-hour, and we've got a bounce on the RSI right here from a higher low. So in terms of 4-hour price action or low time frame, we're still in this bearish wedge here, or this rising wedge. So bearish price pattern, looking a little bit overheated on the weekly chart. Like that trend is slowing down. We're coming up, so we are near some pretty key support or pretty key resistance levels here. If we take a look at some liquidity pools, we can see that we've got this liquidity pool up here. So potentially we could see, although we do have this swing breakout, So there's a couple things that could play out. I think we might get one more push up by Bitcoin dominance here on the low time frame. So we can see this was a previous swing high. We were able to break out of here, back test it as support, bounce from there. So that's a successful swing, breakout, and back test. So we could continue up. We're going to continue following, looking for those potential targets. 66% potentially, could be a top, or up to 66% on Bitcoin dominance. So for now, on the low time frame, dominance continues to show strength, look like it could sustain another little push up. That being said, on the high time frame, we're losing that momentum, so we're going to be looking for that potential cycle top for Bitcoin dominance. We're going to flip over to TOTAL3 here on the weekly chart. We want to get a good idea of what's going on, so we take a look here. We see we're kind of stuck right there. So we've had this downtrend, breakout, back test, and leg up here. So downtrend, breakout, we're waiting for that back test confirmation. We want to get and hold above that 50-day moving average that we talk about. So just paying attention to that. Take a look at our momentum indicators. We see the RSI and the MACD. RSI is kind of neutral right now, so we could come down a little bit still. Kind of undecided on the DMI here. A little bit more bearish momentum favored on the weekly, and same thing on the Vortex indicator. So nothing to really write home about yet on the weekly chart when it comes to TOTAL3. If we take a look at the daily chart, it'll give us a little bit different, a little bit different signal here. So on the daily, getting a bounce from the RSI. MACD will likely continue up here. Vortex curling up, looking good, and DMI curling up, but very kind of a weaker trend. You can see that ADX line is pretty low right now. So on the low time frame, we see we've got this swing breakout here. So similar to what we saw in the past, we've got this prior swing high. We were able to break out, back test it, flip it as support, and continue from there. So what I want to see from TOTAL3 right now on the daily chart, we've got one higher low, one higher high, two higher lows, so 3 data points. That's pretty much the minimum if you were to take a trade here. If you were interested in altcoins, TOTAL3, you can't trade TOTAL3 as an asset, but it just tells us kind of what the broad altcoin market is doing. So right now we kind of have that minimum uptrending price action on the daily, but I would rather wait for kind of a little bit more confirmation. You can see we're stuck right here. We're closer to resistance than we are to support. I would want to see TOTAL3 really breaking up, testing that 200-day, come back, hold these lows, hold that 50-day moving average, and continue up from there. So that's what I'm looking at for TOTAL3. We're going to look at some individual altcoins now. These are requests from my Telegram group, so I just reached out to a bunch of different people and said, if you have a specific altcoin request that you want me to check out, so these are the ones we're going to look at. Sui is the first one. So Sui been a very strong performer lately. We're going to take a look at kind of all the different analysis here. So we see we're above our 200-day moving average. We're above our 50-day moving average. Look at this huge move, like insane move there. It's kind of resembles what I saw over here. So I'm looking at a similar thing potentially playing out. Look here, we were in the downtrend consolidation. We were stuck under these swing highs. We eventually broke out, back tested it right here. Look at this increase in volume. And then that was that breakout move, and look at that pattern, just kind of that wedge again. So it's kind of it's a more risky pattern, and look, we eventually came back, retested that 50-day moving average not once but twice, confirming that higher low before getting that next leg up. So if we take a similar, we could even take a bars pattern just to look here. So let's take it from the actual breakout to the retest of that 50-day moving average, and we'll just pull it over here. If we were to break out, we look at this, so something like that, so nothing really goes straight up. It doesn't fit perfectly, but if we were to drag it kind of like this, we'd be looking something like that. So I also have this Fibonacci retracement pulled from this swing low to this high. So look for that back test of that 50-day moving average, but we might not see it. We could just see kind of more price action like this, like kind of played out last time, before we come back, retest that 50-day, come in, put in the higher low, and get that continuation move. So that's what we saw over here. I'll kind of point that out. We had our first move up, and then kind of this chopping upwards price action, higher highs, higher lows, ultimately breaking that higher low structure and coming back, testing the 50-day here. So ideally, if we break those lows, you want to wait for the higher low retest confirmation, get in there and ride that trend to the upside with stop losses trailing up. So something like that, what we're looking for, either a retest of this Fibonacci support zone. You see we're well above all the key moving averages. We're above our VRVP point of control. So we see this, if we come back and test this breakout here, look to build a position. Same thing, 618 down to 786, or that retest of the 50-day moving average. As that continues curling up, we can kind of adjust where we might find that potential entry. But SUI is one that looks really good right now. RSI continuing up, MACD looking good. See that DMI, looks like it's bouncing there, and the vortex holding up here. But what I want to kind of point out is look at the similar setup here in terms of all these indicators. RSI, similar levels. MACD, also kind of similar levels right in through here. We see the DMI, a very similar setup where that kind of DMI positive line tried to bounce off the ADX line, ultimately breaking below. So we're going to watch that. If we see that positive line break below the ADX, that is kind of that signal to me that the trend is slowing down. We're going to get a little bit of retracement. We'll get our higher low entry, and that's the one we're going to target. And the vortex indicator also looking very similar. So basically, in terms of price action and in terms of the indicators, we're looking very similar to this move back over here. So watch for that retest of that 50-day moving average for that potential entry. Look for the higher low confirmation and ride that to the upside. So SUI looking really good. We'll take a quick look at the Bitcoin pair strength indicator. See here, yeah, so showing a lot of relative strength, coming down to the lows, trending up, holding these lows, and continuing to turn up again. So one of the stronger altcoins, definitely out of the gate, is SUI. Keep your eye on that one. Look for those entries and take them as those setups make sense. Next up, we've got Ondo here. So Ondo Finance, popular one for me. I really like it for the RWA narrative. We can kind of see the chart here. I did mark a support zone. This is the cycle low to high support, or Fibonacci support. How we take that Fibonacci retracement tool, very low of the chart to the high for the cycle. That's our 618 to 786. So definitely an opportunity to accumulate Ondo in this region here. But we also see this upsloping trend line acting as support multiple times through here. We saw a little deviation underneath that trend line, regained it, bounced, uptrending price action on the daily. We've got one higher high, higher low, subsequent higher high, and higher low. So that's 4 data points for the uptrend on Ondo. When we take a look at our momentum indicators on the daily, though, we can kind of see losing a little bit of momentum on the MACD. Same thing with the DMI. If we can see that, continue to see that blue line curl up, that's going to look good. Kind of undecisive here on the vortex indicator. Our Bitcoin pair strength indicator is not looking as strong here on the daily as something like SUI. So although SUI is performing much better, you saw that huge move outside of kind of just blowing past all support, getting above its 200-day. We want to see this start to curl back up, but maybe it can start to build a bit of a bottom. But in terms of Bitcoin pair strength, there is some better looking altcoins out there. That being said, the technical setup on this is not bad. We see those higher highs and lows, and we could enter here. You know, you might have a stop loss below this trend line, below this horizontal support, or look for that entry at the trend line. So another opportunity, if we come back holding this trend line, entry there, stop loss below support, and ride that to the upside, move that stop loss up as soon as possible. So Ondo looks pretty good right now. It doesn't look as good as SUI in my opinion, especially when looking at the Bitcoin pair strength, and we really want to focus on that relative strength. But if you like Ondo, it's not a horrible technical setup. I'm personally going to wait for a little bit more confirmation, maybe another higher high and low on the daily chart here before I look at taking that position, or before I look to adding to that position, sorry. I do have some spot Ondo, and I have a bit of a swing trade on Ondo open as well. I've mentioned that in my Telegram group. So If you're not aware, I share all these trades, all these investments that I take within the group just for transparency's sake. But Ondo right now looks pretty good, but I want to see more continued strength, and I want to see more relative strength to its Bitcoin pair. Doge here, we see we did break out of this long downtrend coming from this horizontal support. You can see it was resistance prior. We're stuck under this swing high area here. So what I would want to see for Doge, we are above our 50-day and our 8-day here, so that's pretty good. But we want to get above the 21-day EMA as well. So something like this might play out where we get a little bit of a pump up. If we get a breakout back test of this zone, that's the entry rate in here, and you would look to take profits potentially at a Fibonacci resistance zone. So something like this, that 618 is a potential target. Look for that higher high low retest of this swing high resistance zone. Flip it as support and ride it to the upside. If we take a look at our momentum indicators, RSI is looking good with that kind of bullish cross heading up. DMI looks good. Look at that, bouncing off that negative line. We want to see the ADX line start curling up to support it. Our Bitcoin pair strength indicator coming in, it is kind of matching those lows and just turning back up now. It hasn't flipped green, but it's looking a little bit more promising than some of the other ones. Not quite as good as Sui, but a little bit better than Ondo. So Doge looks pretty good here from the daily, but I want to see that continuation, confirmed higher high, low breakout. If you're entering this on a swing trade basis, look to put that stop loss below support and ride it to the upside and trail those stop losses up. So Doge looks pretty good. I think looks a little bit better than Ondo, but not quite as good as Sui, although Sui is quite a bit more extended. We're going to flip over to Paul here. So this is Polygon, ex-Matic. If you aren't aware, Matic is a really old project. It's the biggest Ethereum L2, biggest market share, lots of partnerships, a good roadmap. Has kind of really struggled this cycle, definitely, but we see, look at this huge buying volume in through here. So that's a massive candle. Basically, since they've switched to Paul, they have not really had that kind of buying pressure. So we're just sitting at that VRVP point of control. We've got the higher high, higher low, higher high structure on the daily, getting that cross of our 8-day and our 21-day above the 50-day moving averages. So look for that retest of that 50-day. We can pull our Fibonacci for the low time frame entry here, and we're looking there between that 786 at about 19 cents up to about 21 cents there for Paul. Could be that entry, but we do face this area up here. So what we might see, come back, retest our support, come up, retest these highs before we can break out. Nothing goes straight up, although it's probably not going to follow this path exactly. Generally, what we're doing is playing support and resistance levels. So coming down here, entering the trade on a swing basis, stop loss below support, ride it up. We can go here, and then we can even add to our position here as well, trail that stop loss up. We get another leg up, we flip this horizontal resistance to support, in which case we can add again and keep trailing that stop loss up continuously, protecting those profits and mitigating our risk. So Polygon, we'll take a look at the momentum indicators. RSI looking good, holding well above that moving average there. We are starting to see the DMI curl up, Vortex curling up. Our Bitcoin pair strength indicator holding higher lows for now, coming from that deep oversold territory. So Polygon looks pretty good here, but we need to see continued strength from Bitcoin, from risk on assets. So it's not my favorite project, but I do recognize they have a good roadmap. They have a lot of experience, a lot of market share, a lot of partnerships. So I do expect Polygon to be a decent performer going forward, but it's not going to really, obviously not kind of showing the same strength as something like Sui, but it still looks pretty good. Aave here, we also see, so a lot of similar charts we're going to look at today, guys. We can kind of see here a similar kind of play. We're stuck under this resistance. We finally break out, back test it, hold it as support. You can see we're above that 50-day, we're above the 200-day, and we're above that 8-day and 21-day moving average. So right now we're just above those lower time frame moving averages. We've broken out, we're in uptrending price action on the daily, holding this trend line here. So Aave continues to look pretty good. Ideally, what you would look for is either a continuation here, back test of that 50-day moving average, hold the higher lows, and then enter it and hope to kind of go on that next leg up. If we look at a potential sell target on Aave, we can pull our Fibonacci retracement. So in between that 618 and 786, we can also see, maybe we have a order block line up in there somewhere. So let's take a look. I just got to find my order block tool. Sorry about that. Order block detector. There we go. Yeah, so we can see, look at these sell order blocks. So lots of sell orders on the way back up. That's why I say it's not going to be straight up. We're going to meet resistance, and we're going to have to flip that resistance into support. So look for that opportunity there. Wait for the higher high back test of that 50-day or these moving averages in through here. Same, we've got the VRVP point of control right here. So good support. Look for that higher low swing trade entry. Looking at RSC, this is a kind of it's a small cap. It's called Research Coin. It is founded by the owner of the founder of Coinbase. I don't know if I really love the technicals of it. I don't really see how it's going to make a ton of money. So I don't think it really gives that same kind of the same selling point to investors. So no one's really going to take the risk in a low cap coin that doesn't really generate much revenue. I've honestly had never really heard about it until the other day, so I'm not really aware. The fundamentals, who knows? I think it's about 10% of the circulating supply or 10% of the total supply is circulating. So could be a lot of dilution in this project. I look here, I don't see any volume. Look at this huge move here on just no volume. I don't really like the looks of that. We have kind of broken out of the downtrend. We're consolidating. But, from a technical perspective, I don't really like it. I like the other coins more. We see a lot of resistance up here. People waiting to sell to get out. And same thing here, big resistance. So not really interested personally. Too small of a market cap, not enough attention, not really enough hype. It's not worth the risk to me. So moving on to Cow, this is for Cow Protocol, their token. So I also like to point out, I don't love tokens for exchanges. I don't really see why a lot of exchanges need tokens. We can see here, we're stuck under this resistance here. So that's the first warning sign to me. We weren't able to really take out these highs convincingly, and we're right at that VRVP point of control. So in terms of price action, we did get a nice big buy candle in here, but it doesn't look super convincing. A lot of resistance above us. We could easily just break down. I think there's more strength in some of the other charts. If we look over here, look at some of these candles. So this candle, some of these candles are like 100% candle moves in a day. I don't really like a chart that looks like this. That tells me that there's kind of a lot, there might be potential manipulation. And to try and incentivize people, like they want people to buy their token to get discounted trading fees on their platform. I just don't really like exchanges that try to lock you into their tokens. I don't even think they should have tokens, to be honest, but I kind of digress. It's beyond the point. From a technical perspective, I don't really like it as much as I like other coins. Look like we could be losing a little bit of structure on the low time frame right through here. So not interested in Cow in my opinion right now. Fart coin, this is a meme coin, so please take this with a very big grain of salt. TA on memes is dubious, to say the least. So yeah, definitely we see here, we had this swing resistance in through here, coming back, and then eventually we were able to break out, hold above it. We got above all our key moving averages, although eventually, again, coming back to retest that 50-day. So a similar pattern that I showed in one of the prior charts. That's also why I say I would rather just wait patiently. If you didn't catch this move yet, I wouldn't really be buying into it right now, because look, even from let's say from the breakout point, that's a 160% move. I'm not chasing a 160% move, especially as we're getting close to Fibonacci resistance. So that's what I say. Manage your risk. Don't chase. Wait for that. So the same people that chased right here, that's not the play. Look at that. Even though you might have got a little bit of relief here, yeah, I got in profits, but ultimately the market kicks you in the teeth. You come back, retest those key levels of support before continuing pulling up. So for me, if you're not in this trade waiting for a retest that could coincide with this 50-day moving average, if we pull our Fibonacci retracement, we can get a more exact entry. So similar to what we usually do. Well, look at that confluence between this swing breakout, this 50-day moving average, this 786, 618 Fibonacci zone. So if we come back here, that would be the potential entry in my opinion. But we'd also ideally want to see good uptrending structure on the lower time frame. So if we come back here, watch that 4-hour, watch for the trend reversal. The exact same stuff that we look for on the high time frame is what we look for on the low time frame as well. But the low time frame is much easier to break down, so keep that in mind. Last but not least, another meme coin here. So again, take it with a grain of salt. These are very new coins, so the technical analysis doesn't work quite as well because it doesn't have the same price action or the same volume that you really get from kind of extended periods of trading. Basically, this came out, pumped up like crazy, basically bled since then. That's why we don't chase things. You know, people chasing up here, you're really gonna not, well, I'm not gonna be surprised, but look at that downside, 91% if you were chasing this coin here at the wrong time. So we do see we've come down, we've kind of broken out of the downtrending price action, we've consolidated, we're starting to put in those higher highs, higher low price action. Watch for that continuation. If we can break these highs, come back, retest this trend line, hold it as support, that could be a swing entry, stop loss below key support, so even below the 50-day if you can manage it. That's what I would be looking at for that coin. So that's pretty much it for today. When I talk about it, some alts are looking really strong. Others, I think, is looking worse than TOTAL3. So our bigger cap alts are showing more relative strength. Sui's looking really good here. Sui looks really good. Ondo, Doge, Paul, Aave, all look decent. They're not showing that same strength that Sui is, but from a technical perspective, they are putting in the early signs of that reversal structure, although it is on the daily chart. Let's look for confirmation on the 3-day, on the weekly chart. Really build those positions. Don't be afraid to take some kind of more aggressive positions if the daily chart looks really good. Just make sure you're protecting it with a stop loss, and then look to add to those positions on that higher time frame confirmation. So thank you so much for watching, guys, and we'll try to do maybe a video like this every week. You can put in your chart requests, whether it's altcoins, whether it's stocks. I want to bring you guys the content that you want, so let me know. You know, I'm definitely open to any suggestions, any constructive criticisms, and we'll continue building this community and sharing all this knowledge and really maximize our potential of success. So thanks so much again, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.